In this video, I'm going to be making a mead that's going to be used as part of a submission to a mead competition. This will be my first mead competition. This one is being sponsored by Man-Made Mead, Doing the Most, and Faywood Mead. This is going to be the Mead Stampede 2022. One of the components of that mead competition is that they've come up with their own special mead using the ingredients of pears, honey, chai, and vanilla. And the intent is that you are going to enter a submission into that component that most closely resembles what they have made. In my opinion, it's kind of like guessing the number of gumballs in a gumball machine, but hey, I'll give it a shot. So I'll show the components of me making it and putting it secondary, and probably the entire process going into bottling. That'll happen within a few weeks' time. So until then. Now to make this entry, we're going to be using the following. I'm going to be using 1 gallon of 100% pear juice. I'm going to be using 3 pounds of raw clover honey. I'm going to be using 1 whole Madagascar vanilla bean. I'll be using 1 tea bag of chai tea. I'll be using the juice of 1/8 or 1/4 of a lemon, depending. I'll be using Red Star Premier Coupe de Blanc wine yeast because of its low ABV characteristics. I'll need something to do fermentation in which case is a 1 gallon fermenter. I'll need an airlock with bung. I'll need a hydrometer with testing tube. And of course, using your sanitizer of choice, I'm going to make sure that all of my equipment has been properly sanitized before starting this project. And that's what I'm going to be making. And that's what I'm going to be using to make this entry into this mead competition. Hey, did I almost forget to mention that I'm going to be using 1/4 cup of homemade yeast nutrient? Almost. Anyway, you can find links to how to do this yourself very simply in the link above. Let's go ahead and get our chai tea component together. First thing we want to do is take about roughly 1/2 cup of water, pour it in our little pot, take our chai tea bag, drop it in, and let's bring the heat up to a simmer. Oh, by the way, yeah, I could have used the microwave, but this looks more interesting on camera. Now that our tea has had a chance to come to a simmer, let's go ahead and turn off the heat. Put our cover back on, and let that cool down. Okay, the very first thing we need to do is go ahead and add in our honey to our primary fermenter. Take an opportunity to warm this honey up so that it will flow more smoothly. And now would be a good time to go ahead and add in 1 of our containers of pear juice.
Let's just go remember that I had very much dictate with it, so I think the dinner will get it's a different.
That having been done, let's go ahead and put our cap back on. And let's go ahead and incorporate this honey into the pear juice. For the next few minutes. And now we can go ahead and add in some more of our pear juice. And now let's go ahead and add in our chai tea. go ahead and take our lemon wedge and let's go ahead and give that a squeeze. And we're going to squeeze out every last little drop because we can always add more acidity later a lot more easily than it is to try and remove it later on. Oh, gotta let that in there. Let's go ahead and bring this up a bit. Don't know how much this is going to foam up, so let's give it plenty of headspace to make sure it's okay that way. And let's give this another shake. All right. Now then, as for our remaining pear juice, we're going to actually store this, and probably we'll end up putting it in a smaller container and simply freezing it. And then as we do subsequent rackings, we'll just simply use pear juice to reduce the amount of headspace later on. Helps us give us a little bit more of that very light pear flavor. Let's go ahead and add in our homemade yeast nutrient. Using 1/4 cup. I think now would be a good time to take a hydrometer reading. Looks like our hydrometer reading is coming in at 1.142. Now then, as for our final ingredient, our vanilla bean, we're going to add this in later. We're going to go ahead and put on our airlock. And we're going to go ahead and let this sit in primary for a good 5 or 6 days. After which, we'll then go ahead and drop in our vanilla bean and let it sit in secondary for as long as secondary lasts. And that, my friends, is how I'm going to make my pear-chi honey mead for the competition. Let's go ahead and start the process of turning our juice into a mead. We're going to go ahead and add our 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. I'm going to put our cap back on for a moment. And let's give it a little swirl to incorporate. Let's go ahead and put our airlock back on. It is now time to label our creation. We are making a pear-chi-vanilla mead. We started it on this date. And our original gravity or starting gravity again was 1.142. Okay, after 5 days, it looks like our hydrometer reading is now reading 1.106. Now that we've had a chance to develop a little bit of alcohol in our mead, 4.72% ABV, we're going to go ahead and drop in our vanilla bean. The alcohol should help extract some of the vanilla flavor from the bean. And putting our airlock back on, this mead is now ready for the long haul. There are going to be several rackings between now and the time of submission. You can find videos in my winemaking playlist on rackings, bottling, pasteurization, degassing, all of that. Those processes you can find in that particular playlist. But as far as the pear-chi-vanilla mead entry, it's just waiting for secondary to proceed along before I turn it in. Okay, it has now been 12 months since I've started making this pear-chi-vanilla mead for competition. And just before I was ready to start bottling the mead, I discovered that I had made a slight error in judgment. I did not take into account the fact that pear juice had a fair amount of sugar in it. And when I added in all of my honey, I ended up with a very high hydrometer reading, which I thought would be fine. Apparently, it was not. When it finally finished fermenting, the hydrometer reading, I'm sorry I didn't record that, was still quite high. In other words, this was going to be a very sweet mead. I tried to fix it by adding in some Red Star Premier Cuvée, which has a ABV tolerance of 18%, thinking that, okay, I'll make the trade-off for less sweetness, but I'll end up with more alcohol. Well, I did end up with more alcohol, but in that bottle of this, it was still too sweet for me to enter in the competition, so I withdrew my entry. Ended up with 4 wine bottles, plus the remainder ended up filling up this little 16-ounce container here. And this is the one that we're going to be using for testing. It was bottled several months ago, so I don't really recall what it tastes like, and I'm hoping that the seal on this is as advertised, so I didn't have any oxidation issues. But I could say that the wine, I mean, it does have, since it was not pasteurized, I still have a layer of sediment on the bottom. It's a little bit hazy, but that's really, why is my phone ringing? Home Medical X something or another. It's a spam caller. We hang up on that one. Okay. Sorry for that. Next time, use your phone. As I was saying, it ended up with an AVB of 13.8%, which is still kind of, it's in the range of being okay, but it certainly wasn't what I was shooting for. However, that having been said, let's go ahead and crack this open. Very slight amount of pressure. Smells okay. Yeah, I'm now regretting not having pasteurized this, if for no other reason than to simply or let it sit in the carboy and bottle age a little bit longer, so that more of the sediment would have filtered out. But that's okay. All right, what do we got? God, I wish this was entered in the competition before I taste this. I really wanted to enter this into the competition because I wanted to have someone else's opinion, who's not a friend, just trying to make you feel nice, as to their opinion of how this stacked up against others. Fortunately, that wasn't going to be the case this time. Maybe next year. Yeah, you can pretty much smell that 13.8% alcohol. Then honey, but you're not really getting any of the pear, chai, or vanilla for that much on the nose. What does it taste like? Well, that's interesting. You get the hint of vanilla. On the back end, you actually get a hint of the chai tea. It's still way too sweet. How sweet is it? I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of, before I say it, let me think one last sip to be sure. Yep, this will pass for a dessert. In case you didn't quite hear that, let me say it again. This will pass for a dessert wine. Not a bad one. Not really into dessert wines, but it's not a bad one. At 13.8%, if I needed something really sweet with a little kick to it, this would probably be it. as far as drinkability is concerned. Sweetness level aside, this is not bad. Good of it. I can pear-chi-vanilla. You know what? I can honestly see myself as making this again, for myself, and reducing the amount of honey that I used, certainly by at least 1 pound. And as a mead that's a bit more on the drier side, this would be quite good. Pear-chi-vanilla. Yeah, when this channel can assimilate the high cost of honey to make another mead, and that's not going to happen anytime soon, I wouldn't mind making this again. I've got 4 bottles left, 4 750 milliliter size bottles left. Yeah, this is not bad. Sweet, but not bad. So there we go. That was my take on the pear-chi-vanilla mead, formerly known as contested entry number whatever. Didn't quite make it. Yeah. Had I not made the error in judgment with the additional honey, this probably would have stood a chance in the competition. But it didn't, so there we go. So if you like what you see here, please click on that. It's the taste of the sweetness that kind of sticks around in your mouth a little bit. It's okay. It depends on what I'm having this with. Yeah, it depends on what you're having this with to counteract the sweetness. Something a bit more acidic, I think, or salty might just do it. However, if you like what you see here, please click on the subscribe button. There is a favorites button down there as well, or a thanks button, I'm sorry, that you all might want to give it a shot, make a donation to the channel, become a member, become a Patreon, help support this channel out. Help this channel to be able to afford more honey so that I can make more meads. So until the next video, I'll see you.